The moment your wife starts negotiating loyalty like a business contract, the marriage already has a corpse in the basement. I was under the kitchen sink tightening a corroded shutoff valve when my phone buzzed across the counter. My hands were wet. My shoulder ached from leaning against hardwood for 40 minutes. I wiped my fingers on a dish towel, grabbed the phone, and saw Natalie's name glow across the screen beside a photo from our 10th anniversary in Asheville. She stood beside me in that picture wearing a cream sweater and holding a paper cup of cider like the world still felt simple. The text underneath hit harder than any scream ever could. I'm done with monogamy. I want options. You stay loyal because stability matters. I read it twice, then a third time slower. Stability matters. That part lodged under my ribs. 20 years together reduced to a risk management strategy. My wife sat inside a downtown Chicago hotel suite typing about marriage like she was restructuring a corporate department. I stayed still for almost a full minute. The wrench rested in my palm. Water dripped from the pipe onto my jeans. My chest tightened once, then flattened into something colder. Natalie followed with another message before I answered. You're grounded. Predictable. Safe. That still has value. Value. Another boardroom word. Another sentence stripped of warmth. 3 years earlier, she would have called me from the airport just to complain about TSA lines or ask if I remembered to thaw chicken for dinner. Somewhere between promotions, executive retreats, and those polished networking conferences, my wife started sounding less like a person and more like a podcast teaching people how to detach from consequences. I set the phone face down and finished tightening the valve because routine gives a man something solid to hold when his private life starts slipping sideways. Then I stood up, washed my hands carefully, and opened our shared American Express account on my laptop. Maybe instinct drove me. Maybe survival. Either way, my pulse sharpened the second I saw the charges from the previous 2 trips. The Ritz-Carlton bar at 11:48 p.m. Private rides booked after midnight. 2 upgraded suite fees labeled executive accommodation adjustment. Natalie always mocked expensive hotels. Said sleeping was sleeping. Now she spent $1,500 a night while texting me about emotional evolution. I exported 6 months of statements into a spreadsheet and started matching timestamps against her calendar invites synced through our family iCloud account. Same pattern every trip. Conference dinner. Gap in activity. Luxury charge. Ride share. Late return. Repeated like clockwork. My stomach twisted when I saw one name appear inside a reimbursement memo attached to a client dinner receipt. Derek Vaughn, Senior Strategy Consultant. I searched him on LinkedIn. Tall. Expensive smile. Divorced. Lives in Denver. Every photo carried the same smug executive polish men where when they think consequences belong to other people. I leaned back slowly and zoomed in on a group conference picture from Scottsdale posted 3 months earlier. Natalie stood beside him holding a whiskey glass. Her body angled toward him in a way I recognized instantly because she used to lean toward me like that in old photos. That realization cut cleaner than rage. My wife already left emotionally. The text merely served as paperwork. I should have exploded. Most men would have. Instead, I opened a second browser tab and searched family law firms specializing in asset protection and marital restructuring. 43 minutes later, I scheduled a consultation for Friday at 8:30 a.m. under my middle name. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from Natalie. Short, casual, almost cheerful. One more thing. Derek thinks you'll eventually understand. I stared at that sentence while something inside me shifted permanently, because until that exact moment, I thought my marriage was collapsing from ideology. Suddenly, it looked a lot more like a coordinated plan. People always think betrayal arrives with lipstick stains or secret motel keys. Mine arrived through vocabulary. Natalie started speaking like somebody preparing a shareholder presentation instead of protecting a marriage. I noticed it months before Chicago. Back then, I still explained it away because men like me build systems around stability. We explain patterns. We smooth over tension. We tell ourselves fatigue changes people. Success changes schedules. Pressure changes tone. Looking back now, every warning sign sat right in front of me, wearing expensive perfume and executive language. Natalie used to call during lunch breaks just to ask if I wanted steaks or burgers for the weekend cookout. Then came the promotion at Strategist Consulting, and suddenly every conversation sounded curated for LinkedIn. She replaced simple words with polished corporate therapy jargon. Boundaries. Exploration. Identity. Expansion. At first it sounded harmless. Then I started catching smaller fractures buried inside ordinary moments. One night, she looked up from her wine glass and said, "Human beings were never designed for lifelong exclusivity." She said it casually while scrolling through emails, like she was discussing gas prices. I remember staring at her across the dining room table, trying to figure out when my wife started talking like a relationship influencer. A month later, she pushed harder. Maybe commitment should evolve with experience. That word stayed with me. Evolve. Natalie always framed selfishness as intellectual progress. She never raised her voice. That almost made it worse. Calm people terrify me more than angry ones because calm requires rehearsal. Around the same time, her spending habits shifted. I handle logistics operations for a regional freight company, so patterns jump out at me fast. I track inventory flow for a living. Numbers tell stories long before people do. Natalie started expensing high-end restaurants during conferences while claiming per diem reimbursements through her company portal. Double dipping. Then she opened a separate American Express Platinum account tied to consulting travel. I found it accidentally while reviewing tax documents. Her explanation came ready within seconds. Corporate networking requires flexibility. Another polished sentence. Another layer of distance. I started saving statements after that conversation. Quietly. Methodically. A man reaches a certain age and learns survival favors preparation over emotion. I built encrypted folders on an external hard drive hidden inside my garage workbench cabinet. Hotel receipts, rideshare logs, calendar screenshots, mileage reimbursements, shared cloud backups. Natalie never suspected anything because I stayed steady. Same routines, same tone, same husband. Meanwhile, her behavior accelerated. Longer gym sessions, new luggage, teeth whitening. She switched phone privacy settings 3 times in 4 months. One Friday night, I walked into the kitchen and heard her laughing through AirPods. Soft laugh, younger laugh. The kind she used to save for me back when our mortgage fit on a single sheet of paper and our biggest fight involved paint colors for the guest bedroom. The second she saw me, she muted the call and grabbed water from the refrigerator with almost military precision. That moment changed something in me. Guilt moves fast when somebody fears discovery. After Chicago, I dug deeper. I pulled 6 months of transaction metadata from our joint accounts and cross-referenced conference dates against her location history stored through our shared vehicle app. Same cities kept repeating. Denver, Scottsdale, Chicago, Miami. Derek Vaughn attended every single event. Every one. Then I found the transfer. $5,000 moved from our joint savings into an unfamiliar LLC account called DV Strategic Holdings 3 weeks before her trip. Natalie labeled it Consulting Partnership Allocation. My stomach tightened when I opened the business registration records because the mailing address tied to the LLC matched a luxury condo building in downtown Denver. The ownership filing listed 2 managing partners, Derek Vaughn and Natalie Carter. Once I saw Natalie's name tied to Derek Vaughn through that LLC filing, my brain stopped treating the situation like a wounded marriage and started handling it like an internal fraud investigation. Emotions still sat there under the surface grinding against my ribs, but structure took over first. Structure always kept me alive. I spent 12 years managing freight operations through labor strikes, diesel shortages, and supply chain collapses. Panic burns money. Precision builds leverage. I downloaded every public record tied to DV Strategic Holdings and built a timeline across my dining room table using yellow legal pads and printed bank statements. The filing date hit me hardest. Natalie opened the company 8 months before sending that message from Chicago. 8 months. That meant she planned this while still kissing me goodbye before work, still sitting across from me during Sunday dinners, still asking whether we should refinance the kitchen renovation loan. People think betrayal explodes suddenly. Real betrayal drafts spreadsheets first. The deeper I dug, the uglier the pattern became. Natalie and Derek structured the LLC through Wyoming registration services before moving operations into Colorado. Anonymous shell layers. Clean tax shielding. Consulting terminology designed to blur personal spending with business development. Somebody coached them. Derek probably handled the operational side, while Natalie managed presentation and language. She always excelled at selling narratives. One transfer caught my attention immediately. $32,000 moved from the LLC into a luxury condo management account in Denver 6 weeks earlier. Same building tied to Derek's residence. Then another charge surfaced under a furniture vendor specializing in executive corporate staging. My stomach tightened while I stared at the invoice because couples furnish spaces. Affairs rent hotel rooms. This looked different. Permanent. Deliberate. My lawyer appointment sat 3 days away, so I accelerated everything. I opened a separate checking account under my name only and redirected my quarterly performance bonus before payroll processed Friday morning. Then I contacted our financial advisor and scheduled a portfolio review under the excuse of retirement restructuring. Natalie trusted me with investments because numbers bored her unless they supported status. She chased lifestyle. I tracked infrastructure. By midnight, I built encrypted backups of every financial document tied to our marriage. Mortgage files, tax returns, insurance records, retirement accounts, property deeds. I stored copies on 2 external drives and locked one inside my office at work. Around 1 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. Natalie, you are quiet tonight. I stared at the message for several seconds before replying with a single sentence. Long day. Her typing bubble appeared instantly. Vanished. Returned again. Then she sent something that shifted the entire balance of power. Derek says men like you usually beg first. I read that line 4 times. Men like you. That phrase carried more than disrespect. It carried discussion. They talked about me together. Analyzed me together. Predicted reactions together. My marriage had turned into a private case study for 2 people drunk on superiority. I leaned back in my chair and pictured Natalie sitting inside some rooftop bar beside Derek while they laughed about stability and emotional evolution over $12 cocktails. Something cold settled into place after that. Sadness faded. Clarity stepped in. I opened my laptop again and searched Derek Vaughn through federal court databases instead of social media this time. 20 minutes later, I found the first crack in his polished image. A civil filing from 4 years earlier. Breach of fiduciary duty. Improper client fund allocation. Quiet settlement. Sealed details. My pulse sharpened immediately because people rarely change patterns. They just improve camouflage. Then I found another document buried deeper in Colorado business litigation records. A former partner accused Derek of diverting corporate assets through layered consulting entities. Same structure. Same language. Same strategy. I sat there staring at the screen while one thought echoed louder than anything else. Natalie thought she joined a sophisticated new future. She might have chained herself to a professional predator. The next 48 hours changed the way I looked at my own marriage. Once suspicion evolves into pattern recognition, every interaction starts carrying weight. Every sentence sounds engineered. Every smile feels positioned 3 moves ahead. Natalie kept texting me from Chicago like nothing catastrophic sat between us. She sent a photo of room service coffee beside a laptop and wrote, "Big client presentation today. Wish me luck." 20 years together, and she still used the same casual tone she used before sneaking money into shell companies with another man. That level of compartmentalization rattled me more than the betrayal itself. Some people cheat impulsively. Natalie built parallel realities and walked between them wearing high heels and a practiced smile. Friday morning, I sat inside a family law office 20 miles from home while attorney Rebecca Sloan flipped through the documents I printed from my investigation binder. Rebecca looked mid-50s, sharp eyes, silver watch, 0 wasted movement. She studied the LLC filings for almost a full minute before speaking. "Your wife planned financial separation before emotional disclosure," she said calmly. "That matters." Those 3 words steadied me. Finally, somebody else saw it too. Rebecca explained the difference between marital dissatisfaction and strategic asset positioning. According to her, Natalie's timeline exposed intent. Secret business entities, hidden transfers, shared investments with a romantic partner, coordinated restructuring before disclosure. Rebecca circled dates with a black pen while outlining possible protective actions. Freeze joint credit increases. Redirect direct deposits. Preserve retirement documentation. Track hidden liabilities tied to third-party entities. She spoke like a surgeon preparing instruments before an operation. Clean. Precise. Controlled. I appreciated that. Chaos exhausts me. Systems calm me down. Then Rebecca asked the question that changed the entire meeting. Has your wife pressured you toward an unconventional relationship structure in writing? I slid my phone across the desk and showed her the messages from Chicago. Rebecca read silently. Her expression hardened around the eyes. Good, she said quietly. Keep every single text. Good. Strange word to hear while your marriage collapses. But she saw leverage where I saw heartbreak. Rebecca explained that Natalie framed loyalty as a one-sided obligation while pursuing independent romantic and financial entanglements. Courts tend to view manipulation differently when documented clearly, especially when shared marital funds support undeclared outside partnerships. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt the balance shift slightly back toward me. After the meeting, I drove straight to our bank branch and opened a secured personal account tied solely to my employment income. Then I transferred exactly half the liquid funds from our joint checking into a protected holding account per Rebecca's recommendation. Clean division. Fully documented. Transparent. I wanted protection, not games. By afternoon, Natalie finally called instead of texting. Her voice carried that same polished calm executives use during hostile negotiations. You have been distant, she said. I hope you are processing this maturely. Maturely. Another weaponized word. I leaned back in my office chair and stared at the freight schedules glowing across my monitor while she talked about emotional growth and modern relationships, like she was pitching software upgrades. Then she slipped. Just for a second. Derek thinks traditional men panic once they realize they are replaceable. Replaceable. There it was. The real philosophy underneath all the therapy language. Power. Status. Ego. I let silence sit there long enough to make her uncomfortable. Then I answered evenly. Interesting choice of words. Her breathing changed slightly after that. Tiny pause. Tiny recalculation. She sensed movement beneath the surface for the first time. We ended the call 2 minutes later. That night, I returned home and opened the mailbox beside the garage. Inside sat a thick, white envelope addressed to Natalie from DV Strategic Holdings. I almost tossed it onto the kitchen counter untouched. Then I noticed the red stamp across the corner. Final notice. Payment overdue. That envelope sat on my kitchen counter for almost an hour before I opened it. Part of me already understood what waited inside. The overdue stamp told its own story. People running secret lives usually bleed cash faster than common sense. Eventually, reality starts mailing reminders. I slid my thumb under the seal and unfolded 3 pages from a private commercial lender based out of Denver. The language hit hard immediately. Outstanding balance. Delinquent account activity. Immediate risk exposure. The loan, tied directly to DV Strategic Holdings, totaled $280,000. Secured through projected consulting revenue and personal guarantees from both managing partners, Derek Vaughn and Natalie Carter. My wife signed herself into 6 figures of private debt while sleeping beside me every night for 8 straight months. I sat down slowly and read the paperwork twice, then a third time with a yellow highlighter. The condo lease, furnishing expenses, corporate entertaining, travel advances, luxury staging services. Somebody built an expensive fantasy using borrowed money and optimism. Worse than that, Natalie guaranteed part of the debt personally. Rebecca Sloan warned me about this exact scenario during our consultation. Affairs create emotional blindness, she said. People start treating adrenaline like financial planning. She nailed it. Natalie spent years criticizing reckless spending. Now she chained herself to a man with prior fiduciary complaints and unstable shell companies. I grabbed my laptop immediately and searched the lender listed on the notice. 3 lawsuits surfaced within minutes. Aggressive collections, fraud allegations, asset seizures tied to defaulted luxury investment partnerships. Derek clearly liked gambling with leverage. My wife just volunteered herself as collateral. Suddenly, those smug texts from Chicago sounded less powerful and more desperate. I logged into our shared mortgage portal next and checked recent credit inquiries. 2 hard pulls appeared within the last 60 days under Natalie's social security number. One from a luxury vehicle financing group. Another from a private mortgage broker in Colorado. My jaw tightened. She planned an exit route while still using our joint account to pay utilities back home. I started building a second binder labeled exposure risk and documented every connection between Natalie and Derek's financial structure. Shared debt, hidden companies, undisclosed liabilities, potential marital fund misuse. Rebecca would want everything organized chronologically. Around 9 that night, Natalie finally FaceTimed me from her hotel room. Perfect makeup, silk blouse, calm expression. She looked composed enough to host a morning television segment about empowered relationships. "You seem emotionally withdrawn," she said after a few minutes. Emotionally withdrawn. Like I was failing some therapeutic benchmark she invented. I watched her carefully while she spoke, because once deception enters your marriage, every facial twitch becomes evidence. Then I noticed it. Tiny crack around the eyes. Slight tension in her jaw. Stress. Real stress. She kept touching the necklace near her throat while pretending confidence. Derek probably sold her some fantasy about reinvention and limitless freedom. Reality started collecting interest payments faster than expected. "You look tired," I said evenly. Her posture stiffened slightly. "Long meetings," she answered fast. Too fast. I leaned back and let silence pressure her. Most people rush to fill silence. Guilty people rush faster. "You know," I said calmly, "financial partnerships require trust." Her eyes sharpened instantly. There it was. Direct hit. She recovered quickly, though. "What is that supposed to mean?" she asked. I almost smiled, hearing the edge in her voice. Natalie always believed she controlled the emotional temperature in every room. Tonight felt different. "Nothing," I answered. "Just an observation." We ended the call 4 minutes later. The second her screen disappeared, my phone buzzed with an incoming email from an unfamiliar address. No greeting. No signature. Just a single attachment titled Denver_condo_security_footage.zip. And beneath it, one sentence. "You deserve to see what your wife invested in." I stared at that attachment for almost 30 seconds before opening it. The file size showed nearly 2 gigabytes. Security footage. Multiple camera angles. Timestamp overlays. Whoever sent it wanted impact, not rumor. My pulse slowed into that cold operational rhythm I get during warehouse emergencies, when everybody else starts panicking and somebody has to think clearly. I downloaded the zip file onto an isolated external drive instead of my main computer first. Habit. Caution matters when strangers suddenly hand you ammunition. The footage opened through a commercial condo security portal. Using archived hallway cameras, lobby feeds, garage entrances, and elevator recordings. No dramatic soundtrack. No cinematic confrontation. Real betrayal rarely looks glamorous. It looks repetitive, predictable, efficient. The first clip showed Natalie entering the Denver condo building carrying 2 garment bags and a leather overnight tote 3 months earlier. Derek met her in the lobby like this had happened many times before. Comfortable body language. Familiar timing. She typed access codes into the elevator without hesitation. Somebody who visits often learns patterns fast. The next clips stretched across weeks. Scottsdale Conference. Miami Retreat. Chicago Strategy Summit. Same cycle. Same condo. Same routines. I watched my wife move through another life with terrifying confidence, while my stomach twisted tighter with every timestamp. Then the footage shifted from emotional damage into financial evidence. Derek received furniture deliveries using DV Strategic Holdings payment authorizations. Natalie signed acceptance forms on camera. Artwork. Appliances. Designer staging pieces. They built a shared residence while leveraging debt through hidden business structures tied partially to marital assets. Rebecca Sloan would tear this apart in court. One hallway clip froze me harder than the rest, though. Natalie stepped out of the elevator holding a stack of printed documents while Derek argued into his phone beside her. Audio never reached the camera, but body language tells stories too. Derek looked agitated. Natalie looked nervous. Then she handed him papers and pointed sharply toward the condo. He grabbed the documents and slammed his palm against the wall hard enough to startle her backward. Stress fractures. Financial pressure. Cracks inside their fantasy. I checked the timestamp immediately. 4 days before she sent me that message from Chicago. 4 days before she tried redefining our marriage terms. My brain connected the timeline instantly. This whole emotional evolution speech suddenly looked less philosophical and more strategic. Natalie needed stability because her new world already carried structural damage. I paused the footage and zoomed into the document folder she carried. The condo camera resolution blurred most details, but one logo remained visible enough to identify. Rocky Mountain Private Lending. Same lender from the overdue notice sitting on my kitchen counter. I leaned back slowly and rubbed my jaw while pieces started locking together. Debt pressure, overdue balances, aggressive lenders, hidden liabilities, a collapsing condo investment. Then Natalie suddenly proposes open marriage dynamics while insisting I remain loyal and financially stable. She wanted freedom supported by my infrastructure. That realization burned cleaner than rage. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with another text from her. I booked us a dinner reservation for Sunday after I get home. We should reconnect face to face. Reconnect. Incredible word choice considering she spent 8 months constructing a secret financial partnership behind my back. I typed a simple response. Sunday works. Then I forwarded the security footage, lender documents, and transaction timeline directly to Rebecca Sloan through her encrypted client portal. 10 minutes later, she replied with one sentence. Ethan, your wife may have exposed herself to fraud liability larger than divorce court. I stared at that message while another notification appeared underneath it from my credit monitoring service. New inquiry detected. Joint home equity line request submitted under both our names. The home equity inquiry changed everything because it proved Natalie already moved beyond emotional betrayal into active financial exposure using my name. Rebecca Sloan called me within 20 minutes of receiving the alert. Her voice carried the same calm intensity surgeons use before difficult procedures. You need immediate containment, she said. Today. By noon, I sat inside her office, signing temporary protective filings designed to block unauthorized debt expansion against marital property. Rebecca moved fast. Freeze requests. Notice filings. Documentation preservation orders. She explained every step with brutal clarity while highlighting risks in red ink across my financial timeline binder. Your wife and her partner appear leveraged beyond their actual liquidity, she said while reviewing the overdue lender notice again. That creates desperation. Desperation creates reckless decisions. I understood exactly what she meant because I had spent half my career watching failing freight companies take catastrophic risks right before collapse. People drowning financially start gambling emotionally. Around 3 that afternoon, Natalie texted me her flight details back from Chicago, landing at 6:10, looking forward to reconnecting. That word again, reconnecting. Like our marriage merely suffered from communication drift instead of hidden LLC debt and covert real estate financing. I replied with one sentence. Dinner is already handled. Short, controlled, neutral. She reacted instantly. You sound strange lately. Strange. Interesting accusation from somebody running parallel lives through shell corporations. I spent the remaining hours before her arrival preparing the house with surgical precision. I removed every sensitive financial document from my office and transferred the external hard drives into a secured lockbox at work. Then I changed passwords tied to investment portals, retirement accounts, and tax access systems. Rebecca instructed me to preserve transparency while tightening operational control. So I documented every adjustment carefully through email records and timestamped account logs. Clean process. Clean chain of evidence. Around 6:30, Natalie walked through the front door, pulling a silver carry-on suitcase behind her. She looked polished enough for a magazine cover. Cream coat, designer heels, hair perfect, expression composed. But the second she stepped inside, I saw it. Her eyes scanned the room too quickly. Anxiety, inventory behavior. People hiding financial pressure start reading spaces differently. She hugged me lightly with one arm and smiled. You seem calmer than I expected, she said. There it was again. Expectation. Natalie expected emotional collapse. Begging. Rage. Negotiation. Instead, she found a man who spent 72 hours building legal containment strategies around her secret liabilities. Long week, I answered evenly. We sat down for dinner 20 minutes later. I ordered takeout from the Italian place she liked because consistency unsettles guilty people more than confrontation. Natalie talked through half the meal about client meetings, executive networking, emotional growth seminars, and how modern relationships require flexibility. Every sentence sounded rehearsed. Then she pivoted carefully toward finances. I have been thinking, she said while stirring pasta slowly. Maybe we should leverage some home equity while rates still make sense. There it was. Direct confirmation. I took a sip of water and held eye contact just long enough to sharpen the tension. Interesting timing, I said calmly. Her fingers paused around the fork. Tiny freeze. Tiny fracture. Then she smiled again. I just mean strategic planning. Strategic. Another corporate word hiding panic underneath. I leaned back and studied her face while years of marriage replayed through my head like corrupted footage. The old Natalie used to laugh with her whole body. This version calculated reactions before every sentence landed. Did Derek suggest that too? I asked quietly. Her face drained so fast, it almost looked painful. Silence swallowed the table. Then came the first real crack in her composure since Chicago. You went through my private business matters? She asked sharply. Private business matters. Not marriage. Not betrayal. Business. That answer told me everything. I stood slowly, walked into my office, and returned carrying a single manila folder. Then I placed it gently on the table between us. Across the front, Rebecca Sloan had printed 3 words in black capital letters. Marital liability exposure. The room changed the second Natalie saw that folder. Her shoulders tightened first. Then her breathing shifted. Tiny reactions most people miss. Years in operations management trained me to read stress patterns fast because panic always leaks through body language before words catch up. Natalie opened the folder slowly, probably expecting emotional accusations or screenshots from hotel footage. Instead, she found organized financial timelines, lender notices, LLC filings, account transfers, and legal annotations from Rebecca Sloan. Page after page. Structured. Indexed. Calm. Her eyes moved faster with every document. What exactly is this? She asked quietly. Her corporate confidence started cracking around the edges now. I sat across from her and folded my hands together. This is the part where your modern relationship philosophy collided with actual liability exposure. She looked up sharply at that. You hired an attorney? I almost laughed hearing the disbelief in her voice. Natalie expected emotional reactions because emotional men stay controllable. Paperwork scares people far more than shouting. You attempted to open a joint home equity line 3 days ago, I said evenly. You personally guaranteed $280,000 tied to an unstable shell company. You transferred marital funds into undeclared investment structures with a romantic partner carrying prior fiduciary complaints. Rebecca believes this already crossed into asset concealment territory. Natalie's face lost color with every sentence. Then anger surged in fast to replace fear. You went through private records and surveillance? She snapped. You invaded my autonomy. Autonomy. Incredible word choice from somebody trying to leverage our shared house into hidden debt financing. I leaned back slowly. You involved me financially the second you attached my name to liabilities without disclosure. Silence hit the table again. Heavy this time. Natalie stared down at the lender notice with Derek's signature highlighted in yellow. You do not understand the full situation, she said finally. Her voice sounded smaller now. Less executive. More cornered. Then explain it, I answered calmly. She opened her mouth twice before speaking. The condo project hit delays. Derek expected consulting contracts to close faster. There it was. Reality. No emotional evolution. No enlightened relationship structure. Just debt pressure wrapped inside therapy language and expensive cocktails. So you plan to refinance our home? I asked. Natalie rubbed her temples hard and looked away. Temporary leverage. We would have stabilized everything once the Denver partnership scaled. Funny how quickly she shifted from individual freedom back into shared responsibility once financial collapse entered the room. And your solution was what exactly? I asked quietly. Keep me loyal, financially stable, emotionally available, while you built another life through hidden companies? She stood abruptly from the table and crossed her arms. You are twisting this into something ugly because your ego feels threatened. Ego. Another shield word. Natalie always weaponized psychology whenever accountability approached, but her hands kept trembling slightly near the folder. She knew the numbers looked catastrophic. Then I slid one final page across the table. The security footage stills from Denver. Elevator timestamps. Condo access logs. Furniture delivery signatures. Derek and Natalie entering the building together over multiple months. Her expression froze completely this time. Pure silence. Who gave you these? She whispered. I held eye contact. That question matters less than the fact somebody else inside your world already started protecting themselves. Fear flashed across her face instantly after that sentence. Real fear. Because people hiding secrets panic hardest once they realize trust inside the affair starts collapsing too. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the kitchen counter. Derek's name lit the screen beside 6 missed calls. Natalie stared at it without moving. Then another message appeared underneath his name. Do not answer anything. They contacted me too. The silence after Derek's message felt heavier than any shouting match I had ever survived. Natalie stared at her phone while panic finally stripped away the polished corporate mask she spent months building. Her breathing shortened. Her fingers trembled against the countertop. For the first time since this entire nightmare started, she looked less like a woman chasing freedom and more like somebody realizing the escape route collapsed behind her. What does he mean they contacted him too? I asked calmly. Natalie looked up fast, mind racing through calculations. Excuses. Damage control. Containment. Same patterns I had watched all week. Then she made the mistake desperate people always make. She tried recruiting me back into the crisis. Ethan, listen to me carefully, she said quickly. This situation became more complicated than I expected. Complicated. Amazing how betrayal always shrinks into softer vocabulary once consequences arrive. I stayed quiet and let her keep talking. Silence pressures guilty people better than anger ever will. Derek handled the financing side, she continued. I trusted him. There it was. The first fracture between them. The moment the fantasy shifted from romance into liability allocation. She started distancing herself from Derek instinctively now that legal exposure entered the room. Human nature never changes. Survival kills loyalty faster than temptation creates it. I opened the folder again and slid another page toward her. Rebecca Sloan prepared it that afternoon. Petition draft. Financial separation notice. Asset protection filings. Temporary freeze requests. Natalie scanned the paperwork while color drained from her face all over again. You already filed? She whispered. Rebecca submits everything tomorrow morning. I answered evenly. Tonight, I wanted transparency. She looked at me like I transformed into somebody unfamiliar. Maybe I had. Pain changes shape once clarity arrives. You are seriously throwing away 20 years? She asked softly. That question almost made me laugh because she still framed herself as the victim standing in the ruins instead of the architect who built them. You opened a hidden company with another man, I said calmly. You guaranteed private debt using future access to marital assets. You proposed loyalty rules designed to protect your financial stability while building another life behind my back. This marriage ended long before tonight. I just finished the paperwork. Tears gathered in her eyes then. Real tears this time. Fear tears. Exhaustion tears. Maybe regret too. Hard to tell anymore. Natalie sat down slowly and covered her mouth with one hand while her phone buzzed again beside the folder. Another message from Derek. Then another. Then another. Crisis flooding in through tiny glowing notifications. He told me the condo would triple in value once the contracts closed. She whispered finally. He said we were building something bigger. We. Strange word considering Derek already sounded ready to protect himself. I leaned back and studied the woman across from me. For months, she treated stability like weakness. Treated loyalty like outdated software. Chased excitement wrapped in luxury branding and pseudo-intellectual language. Now the entire structure cracked apart under overdue debt notices and legal filings. The irony almost felt cruel. You know the saddest part? I said quietly. Natalie looked up slowly. You thought monogamy trapped you. Turns out debt did. That landed hard enough to silence the room again. Around midnight, Natalie carried a suitcase into the downstairs guest room without another argument. No screaming. No dramatic collapse. Just the sound of somebody realizing consequences move faster than fantasy. I stayed upstairs in our bedroom afterward and opened the window slightly while reviewing one final email from Rebecca Sloan confirming tomorrow's filings. Then another notification appeared underneath it from an unknown sender. One sentence only. Derek Vaughn just boarded a flight to Panama 30 minutes ago. I stared at the screen for a long moment before setting the phone down beside my wedding ring. Because sometimes the real punishment arrives after the betrayal ends. Sometimes people destroy their entire lives chasing options, only to discover the one thing they truly needed was the person they treated as replaceable.